For less than $3, Amish farmers have been protecting entire fields, season after season, without a single bottle of pesticide. Not one. And the bugs still come, but they don't stay. That's what got my attention the first time I heard about it. I'd spent years watching the grocery bill climb and the garden shrink. Every summer, something was eating my tomatoes. Something was hollowing out my squash. I'd spray, and the next week it was worse. The neighbors had the same problem. We were all doing the same thing and getting the same result. But here's the thing. About 40 miles from where I grew up, there are Amish communities that have been farming the same land for over 100 years. No pesticides, no chemical sprays. Fields that should, by every modern assumption, be destroyed by the time August rolls around. And yet, they're not. The harvests come in clean, the plants stay standing, the yields are real. I kept asking myself how, and then I started asking them. The first farmer I spoke with was a man named Eli, older than I expected, quiet voice. He walked me out past the barn and into rows of corn that stood taller than my head, and I asked him what he used to keep the insects off. He smiled the way people smile when they think a question is just a little bit funny. Then he bent down and picked up a handful of soil. He let it run between his fingers and said, "The plant defends itself. We just help it remember how." I didn't understand that for a long time. But here's what most people don't know. A healthy plant growing in genuinely alive soil produces its own chemical compounds to repel insects. Not metaphorically, literally. Compounds with names like salicylic acid and jasmonic acid. Substances the plant manufactures in response to stress that insects find either repellent or toxic. Commercial farming suppresses this system first by stripping the soil and then by replacing the plant's own defenses with a spray. The plant forgets, it becomes dependent, and the cycle never ends. What Eli and every other Amish farmer I've spoken with understood, intuitively or by tradition, was that the goal was never to kill the bug. The goal was to grow a plant the bug didn't want. That's the secret, and it's been sitting in plain sight for over a century. If you've been spraying all summer and still losing, this is why. And if you want to stop, if you're done buying products that make the problem worse, then keep watching because I'm going to walk you through exactly how this works and exactly what you can use starting this week. There's something I want to mention before we go further. If this kind of content is useful to you, real old-fashioned knowledge that saves money and actually works, consider subscribing. It's free. It takes 1 second and it means you'll see the next video, which is on soil building with nothing but kitchen scraps. Okay, back to the bugs. Eli's grandmother, he told me, never bought anything from a store for her garden, not in 60 years of farming. When I asked what she used for insects, he told me she had 3 things she kept in the cellar and mixed depending on the season and the pest. 3 things. Most of them things you have in your kitchen right now. The first was wood ash. This one surprised me, not because it's exotic, it isn't, but because I'd been throwing mine away for years. Every winter, buckets of it, into the compost or onto the snow, not thinking twice. But wood ash contains potassium, calcium, and trace minerals that do something remarkable when worked into the soil around plants. They raise the pH slightly, and most of the soft-bodied insects that destroy gardens, aphids, slugs, cutworms, cannot function in a slightly alkaline environment. It doesn't kill them dramatically, it simply makes the soil and the plant surface inhospitable. They move on. Here's exactly how to use it. Take dry wood ash, it must be dry, from hardwood if you have it, though any untreated wood works, and dust it lightly around the base of plants in the evening. Not on the leaves unless you're targeting specific pests, at the base, around the stem, and in a ring extending about 6 inches out. Water moves it into the soil overnight. You do this once every 2 weeks during the growing season. That's it. No measuring required. A light, visible dusting is enough. A coffee can full will cover a 30-foot row. The second thing in Eli's grandmother's cellar was dried neem leaf. Now, most people have heard of neem oil. It's sold in garden centers and it works, though it's become expensive enough that a season's supply runs $25 or $30. But dried neem leaf, the actual leaf, dried and crumbled, does something slightly different and in some ways more powerful. It doesn't just sit on the surface. When it breaks down in the soil, it releases a compound called azadirachtin that disrupts the molting cycle of insects. Larvae hatch, they cannot mature, they cannot reproduce. The population collapses from the inside over the course of 2 to 3 weeks. You don't need much. A small bag of dried neem leaf, available from any Indian grocery store for under $4, since it's used in traditional cooking and medicine, gives you enough material for a full growing season in an average backyard garden. Work a small handful into the soil at planting time. Then use it as a top dressing once a month. Crumble it fine, scatter it at the base of plants, and water it in. That's the whole method. Science has since confirmed what Eli's grandmother knew by feel. Studies from agricultural universities in India, where neem has been used as a natural pesticide for thousands of years, have documented azadirachtin's effectiveness against over 200 species of insects, including the most destructive garden pests in North America. It does not harm earthworms, it does not harm bees, it does not leave residue on fruit. Those are the three things I always check first, and neem passes all three. The third thing was fermented plant tea. This one takes a little more time to prepare, but the time is almost entirely passive. You are not standing over a stove, you are not measuring precisely. You fill a bucket, you wait, and then you use it. The result is a foliar spray that strengthens the plant's own immune response and creates a surface that insects find deeply unpleasant. Here's how it works. Take a large bucket, 5 gallons is ideal, and fill it about 1/3 full of any combination of the following: comfrey leaves, stinging nettle, yarrow, dandelion, or horsetail. If you don't have fresh plants, dried herbs work almost as well. Then fill the bucket with water. Non-chlorinated water is best. If you're on city water, fill the bucket and let it sit uncovered for 24 hours before adding the plant material. The chlorine will off-gas and stop interfering with the fermentation. Cover the bucket loosely, you want airflow but no open exposure, and leave it in a warm location for 10 to 14 days. It will smell. There is no version of this that doesn't smell. That is the fermentation working. Stir it a couple of days if you can. After 2 weeks, strain out the plant matter and dilute the liquid at a ratio of 1 part tea to 10 parts water. Use this as a foliar spray, coating the leaves top and bottom in the early morning or evening, never in direct midday sun. What this does physiologically is remarkable. The fermented plant compounds, rich in silica, nitrogen, and trace minerals, are absorbed directly through the leaf surface and trigger what researchers call systemic acquired resistance. The plant, in essence, receives a signal that stress is present and activates its full defensive chemistry. The same compounds insects find repellent surge through the plant's tissues. Aphids, whiteflies, and mites, which feed by piercing leaf tissue and counter a chemical environment they are not equipped to tolerate. Now here's the part most people skip when they read about this method, and it matters. The tea only works as well as the plants you use to make it. Comfrey and nettle are the two most powerful options because they accumulate minerals at extraordinary rates. Comfrey roots reach down 4 feet or more and pull up nutrients from layers of soil that most plants never access. If you are going to plant one thing this spring specifically to improve your pest control next summer, plant comfrey. One plant in a corner you don't mind it spreading. It will come back every year and give you a harvest of leaves for as long as you keep the garden.
Before we finish on this, I want to address the safety question directly because I know it matters to you. Every method I've described is safe. Safe for children, safe for pets, safe for pollinators, safe for the earthworms doing the real work underground. Wood ash is just potassium and calcium, the same minerals in your multivitamin. Neem leaf has been consumed by humans for thousands of years in food and medicine. Fermented plant tea is exactly what it sounds like: decomposed plant matter in water. Nothing about this requires gloves, nothing requires special disposal, nothing has a warning label. That's not true of the spray you're probably using right now. Pyrethrins, spinosad, even the organic sprays carry instructions about not spraying near water, not applying before rain, waiting periods before harvest. Those instructions exist for a reason. The compounds are real and they have real effects. I'm not saying don't use them. I'm saying there is a full alternative that requires none of those precautions, costs almost nothing, and works with the biology of your garden instead of against it. The cost comparison is simple. Wood ash is free if you have a fireplace. One bag of dried neem leaf costs under $4 and lasts a full season. The ingredients for fermented plant tea cost nothing if you have any of those plants growing near you, and comfrey, once planted, costs nothing ever again. Total first-year cost for an average garden is somewhere between $0 and $8. A commercially available bottle of organic pyrethrin spray costs $12 to $18 and covers a fraction of the same area. There is one bonus method I want to share, and I'm including it because Eli mentioned it almost as an afterthought on the way back from the cornrows, the way people mention the most important things, casually, as if they assumed you already knew. Copper. Thin copper tape or copper wire laid around the border of raised beds or along the stems of individual plants creates a mild galvanic reaction with the mucus of slugs and snails that the insects find intensely aversive. There is no harm to the plant, no toxicity, no residue. It is purely physical and electrochemical. A single roll of copper tape from a hardware store costs about $6 and protects the same beds for 5 to 10 years. Eli's grandmother had copper wire laid around her vegetable beds her entire adult life. It was there when he was a child, and it was there when he was a grandfather. I asked him once what she said when people asked why her garden was never eaten up the way theirs were. He laughed quietly and said she always gave the same answer. She said she fed the soil, and the soil fed the plant, and the plant fought for itself, that she was just a helper. That's the whole philosophy. It doesn't take a degree, it doesn't take expensive inputs, it takes patience and a willingness to work with something older and wiser than the product on the shelf. The bugs still come to Eli's fields. They always will. But they arrive at a plant that knows how to say no, a plant rooted in living soil fortified with minerals, primed with fermented compounds that signal danger through every cell. The insects land, taste, and move on. Season after season, that's what happens. Your garden can do the same thing. Starting this week, with materials you can gather today, you can begin shifting the balance. Not overnight, not with one application, but within a single season you will see the difference. The plants will hold their leaves longer, the fruit will come in cleaner, the spraying will stop. And next summer, when a neighbor asks why your tomatoes look the way they do, you'll have the same answer Eli gave me. A handful of soil and a quiet smile.